You've been told you overthink, that you're too serious, that you need to lighten up. But here's what people don't understand. You're not overthinking. You're a deep thinker, and your brain works completely different from most people. While others skim the surface, you're diving into the depths, and that changes everything about how you experience life. Deep thinkers don't just process information. They analyze it, question it, connect it to everything else they know. When someone tells you a simple story, you're not just hearing the events. You're reading between the lines, noticing what they didn't say, picking up on the emotion behind their words. You're building a complete picture while everyone else is looking at a single frame. And this isn't something you chose. You can't turn it off. Your brain automatically goes deeper. It's like everyone else is given a map with major highways, and you've got every side street, every alley, every hidden path marked out. More information, more connections, more to process. This is why small talk feels impossible. Someone asks how your weekend was, and while they want a 3-word answer, your brain is sorting through layers. The events, yes, but also what those events meant to you, how they connect to your current mood, whether this person actually cares or is just being polite. By the time you've processed all that, the conversation has moved on. You're not slow, you're thorough, and there's a massive difference. Here's what makes deep thinkers different. You need to understand things fully before you can move on. Most people can accept surface-level explanations. They hear something, nod, and that's enough. But you need the full story, the context, the reasons behind the reasons. When you learn something new, you don't just memorize it. You break it down. You ask why it works that way. What happens if you change one variable? How it connects to other things you already know. This is why you can spend hours researching something that started as a simple question. One search leads to another. One article opens 5 more tabs, and suddenly it's 3 in the morning and you've become an expert on something completely random. People call this a rabbit hole. But for you, it's just how learning works. You can't absorb information in pieces. You need the whole picture. And until you have it, your brain won't let it go. This shows up everywhere. In conversations, you remember details people forgot they told you. Not because you're trying to, but because your brain filed it away, connected it to other things, built a network of understanding around that person. So when they mention something months later, you remember. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. They think you're obsessed or weird. You're not. You just pay attention in a way most people don't. Deep thinkers also have a complicated relationship with silence. You're comfortable being quiet. Actually, you prefer it. Because silence gives you space to think, to process, to exist without performing. But here's the problem. Other people interpret your silence as something else. They think you're upset, bored, judging them. So they fill the quiet with noise. They ask if you're okay. They try to pull you into conversation. And now you have to manage their discomfort with your natural state. This is exhausting. Because you're not being quiet to make a statement. You're just thinking. Maybe you're working through an idea. Maybe you're observing the room. Maybe you're replaying a conversation from earlier, analyzing what was really being said. Your silence has purpose. But to everyone else, it looks like absence. And then there's the opposite problem. When you do speak, people aren't ready for it. Because you don't just share thoughts. You share fully formed ideas. You've been quiet, turning something over in your mind, and when you finally say it, it comes out complete, detailed, thought through, and people look at you like you just dropped a philosophy lecture in the middle of casual conversation. You're not trying to be intense. You just don't know how to think halfway. Here's something deep thinkers know but rarely talk about. You feel things differently, not stronger, not weaker, just different. When something happens, you don't just react to it. You experience it on multiple levels at once. The event itself, what it means, how it fits into the bigger picture of your life, what it says about you, about other people, about the world. One moment can trigger an entire internal analysis. This is why you can seem calm on the outside, while there's a storm happening internally. Someone says something small, something they'll forget in 5 minutes. But you're connecting it to a pattern you've noticed, a similar thing that happened before, what this might mean for the future. And now, that small comment has weight. People mistake this for sensitivity. They tell you not to take things so personally. But you're not taking it personally. You're taking it deeply. There's a difference. You're not hurt. You're processing layers that other people don't even see exist. And this works both ways. Joy hits different too. A beautiful moment, a meaningful conversation, a perfect song. These things land with full force because you're not just experiencing them. You're aware that you are experiencing them. You're present for all of it. The moment and the meaning of the moment happening at the same time. Deep thinkers struggle with something most people don't even notice. The gap between how you think and how you're supposed to act. Society rewards quick responses, fast decisions, immediate reactions. But that's not how your brain works. You need time. Time to consider options. Time to think through consequences. Time to make sure you actually mean what you're about to say. So you're constantly caught between two choices. Rush your answer and feel like you didn't say what you actually meant. Or take your time and watch people get impatient, assuming you don't know or don't care. Neither option feels right. Because the truth is, you do know. You often know more than the person asking. But you can't access that knowledge at their speed. Your understanding is built like a web, not a list. Everything connects to everything else. So when someone asks you a question, your brain doesn't pull one answer. It pulls the entire network. And sorting through that takes time. This makes you seem indecisive, hesitant, unsure. But you're not unsure. You're considering angles other people don't even know exist. And by the time you've done that, the moment has passed. And you're left holding a fully formed thought with nowhere to put it. Here's what nobody tells deep thinkers. You're going to feel lonely sometimes. Not because you're alone, but because even when you're surrounded by people, you're operating on a different wavelength. You can be in a room full of conversation and feel completely isolated because the talk stays surface level. Weather, work, weekend plans, and you're trying to engage, trying to care, but your brain is somewhere else, somewhere deeper, and there's no bridge between where they are and where you are. This doesn't make you better than anyone. It just makes you different, and different is isolating. Because you can't explain this to people without sounding pretentious. You can't say, I think differently, without it coming across wrong. So you stay quiet, you smile, you nod, and you feel the gap growing wider. But then, something happens. You meet someone who gets it, someone who also thinks in layers, and suddenly, conversation feels effortless. You're not explaining yourself. You're not translating your thoughts into simpler versions. You're just talking. And they're actually keeping up. These connections are rare, but when you find them, they matter more than 100 surface-level friendships, because finally, you're not alone in your own head. The hardest part about being a deep thinker isn't the thinking itself. It's the constant pressure to be different than you are. People want you to be lighter, more spontaneous, less in your head. They mean well. They think they're helping. But what they're really asking is for you to stop being yourself, to flatten out the parts of you that make you who you are. And maybe you've tried. Maybe you've forced yourself to be more outgoing, to stop analyzing, to just go with the flow, but it never lasts. Because you can't turn off depth. You can't unlearn the way you see the world. It's not a choice. It's how you're built. So you're left with two options. Keep pretending and feel exhausted, or accept that you're never going to fit the mold everyone expects. And that second option, that's where freedom lives. Because here's the truth. Your depth isn't a flaw. It's not something that needs fixing. The world needs people who think deeply, who ask hard questions, who see what others miss, who care enough to understand things fully instead of skimming past them. You're not too much. You're not too serious. You're not overthinking. You're just thinking. Actually thinking in a world that's forgotten how. And the strangest part? Most deep thinkers spend years trying to become more like everyone else, trying to think less, feel less, notice less. They see their depth as the problem. But then something shifts. Maybe it's age. Maybe it's exhaustion from pretending. Maybe it's finally meeting enough people who think the same way. But at some point, you stop apologizing for your mind. You realize the people who told you to think less were just uncomfortable with depth, that the world calling you too much says more about the world than it does about you. And once you stop trying to shrink yourself, everything changes. Because depth isn't a burden you carry. It's a lens you see through. And some people will never understand that. But the ones who do, they don't just accept you. They've been waiting for you.